Hello, good people of the internet. Happy New Year, and I am super happy and honored to be here starting the new year with my good friend Alan over at GameGrooves. How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing great.
That's great. Awesome. And I hope that everybody in chat is doing well as well. Yeah, we're here tonight for yet another Let's Listen. We had a little bit of a technical snafu last week and had to postpone, but we're super happy and lucky that we got to reschedule for tonight. A little bit last minute, but we managed to get everybody all tied up in a pretty little red bag to gift you some late Christmas presents. We've got every arranger on the album here tonight to talk about their arrangements, and I'm super happy. Alan, yeah, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Over the Summit? What was the what spawned the genesis of this community album?
Well, there's a couple different answers. First of all, Celeste is a very special game for me for a lot of different reasons. The soundtrack being one of the biggest ones. Lena Raine did such an amazing job, creating this soundtrack where I don't know. You have this really intense journey, right? Where you're dying a lot, you're dealing with frustration and anxiety and all these other emotions that the character and the player feels. But at the same time, you have these pieces of music that drive you forward, and imbue like certain emotion, or yeah, imbue certain emotions, and
Mhm.
so that was one reason I had always kind of wanted to do a Celeste album. At one point, I was thinking maybe like a specific genre or doing some kind of vocal album with it. But, it was kind of a spur of the moment decision where I knew we had the Castlevania album that was slated for Halloween timeframe, which hopefully everyone enjoyed that.
Mhm.
And we have a spoiler alert, Shovel Knight Metalcore album coming out in February. But there was this big 4-month gap, and I was like, well, I don't really have the, bandwidth to do a full album, but what if we did an EP? And then for some reason, Celeste just came to mind, and I shot out the message as I do, and everybody panicked. It was like, what? An album this late? And, no, I'm just kidding. But it was a quick turnaround time. So we had, a couple people respond. We ended up doing 6 tracks because I thought that would be more manageable. And here we are. So it was a combination of, having the idea of wanting to pay tribute to Celeste in the soundtrack, and then, realizing that we had a pretty big gap in releases. So I thought this would be a good kind of like a holdover, if you will. And it ended up being, much more than just a holdover. It ended up being a strong album in its own right.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and Celeste is that's not holdover gameplay there.
Yeah.
That is a deep dive into platforming punishment, folks. If you haven't played it yourself, yeah, it's I want to put it in the same kind of Venn side of the Venn diagram with like Super Meat Boy and those other kind of like harsh punishing platformers where yeah, like you do feel a lot of those emotions just like with your gameplay as well as with the story and how that develops. Yeah, and I think you've done a good job, Alan, of cultivating a wide, diverse a variety of like genres and people doing arrangements and stuff for this album as small as it is. Yeah, what was the selection process like? Was there a lot of elimination, or was it just kind of get what comes to you?
Well, I'm for now I can still sort of do first come first serve. So I essentially said we've got 6 slots,
Mhm.
who's interested. There were probably 2 or 3 people that I had to say, oh, sorry, that track's already taken. But in some cases, um, I ended up saying, well, reach out to this person because they're arranging the track. And so I had a couple cases where people, hopped on other tracks and collaborated with the Rangers, and so that way, it's a good way. I feel like that's a good way to kind of encourage cooperation in the group, and it's always more fun when you have a lot of people on track. So you can just ask Lucas about that.
He's looking a little surprised and embarrassed backstage. But we're going to be talking to him very soon because his track comes up first on this, and it's got a very fitting name as well. First Steps. Yeah, this is a really beautiful arrangement. Do you want to give us a little intro before we dive in here, Alan?
There is some backstory we'll share after the arrangement play after the song plays, but stay tuned for more.
Awesome, folks. This is Lucas Guimarães' first steps on Over the Summit. Let's listen. right, and here we have Lucas himself, and we are just holding back the conversation here, so that we can share it with you people in chat. Lucas, that was a beautiful rendition of the first steps. That just took me right back to the very first level of that game. Just gently getting up there, kind of getting a hand of the game mechanics and stuff like that. And I heard that you also had to get a good handle on putting this track together. Why don't we get into that?
Hold on, before we get to Lucas,
there
What?
is.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Alan's putting the brakes
Because I
on.
wanted to give my perspective, and then we'll get Lucas's perspective.
Okay.
So I'm sure Lucas is going to have a different perspective.
Well, A/B contrast. I like it.
So the funny story behind this is, obviously, as I said, this album, I think it was like a month. People had like a month to finish tracks, something like that. And there was also other albums getting produced at the same time. And Lucas reached out to me, wanted to do this track. Fine. You know, I trust Lucas, as I trust all the artists.
I'm
I don't know what's going on with Katie, but so I was everybody else was kind of getting their tracks in. Lucas reached out to me and said, "Hey, I might need a little extra time." I said, "That's fine." Then Lucas started sending me like little pieces of the song, and I was like, I don't really know how this is going to come together. And generally, I don't do like check-ins, because I just don't really I trust that, like, I make the decision on whether or not it's like going to make an album when people give me the finished product. And I think there's sometimes a reason why, because like work in progresses are just that. So it's hard for me as a producer to hear something and make a judgment call on quality when it's not put together. And this is a perfect example, because the pieces were coming together, and then I received a demo arrangement. And the demo arrangement was very different from the final version. And I had some significant concerns. And this is all in the midst of like, you know, it's been like, I think 3 or 4 days after the deadline. So it's like, I don't want to crush Lucas's spirit, because Lucas is a valuable contributor to GameGrooves, and they've contributed to many albums. But by the same token, I wasn't happy with where the track was at. So I kind of reached out and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And we had a very good conversation. And basically I said, my concern was I didn't want Lucas to go through all this extra effort, because they were burning, they're just one of those people that will like put them 110% effort into everything. And I didn't want them to burn themselves out for a track that wouldn't make it on the album. So I kind of just put my cards on the table and said, I'm not sure this is going to make it. And they said, well, let me give it one more shot. Let me finish it up, because it was still in the demo state where it didn't have all the instruments and everything. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad that they chose to finish it, because when I heard the final version, which was maybe a day or two after the demo one, it was like totally different. And I could see what they were trying to do with it. But I've learned, those are like the hardest parts of being a producer, is having those hard conversations with people, knowing how to navigate it, instead of just being like, this sucks, or I don't like this. You have to be constructive with your criticism. Like, what don't you like? A lot of times I'll defer to James, who's the mastering engineer, as far as giving specific critiques, because I'm not a musician, and James is just a master at breaking down, like, well, here's what you could do here, and here's what you could do here. So for me, it's more of like an overall kind of feeling. I had concerns that track overall didn't fit with the other ones, but obviously I need to give huge credit to Lucas and all the other featured artists, because it's the first track on the album. It went from being my most concerned track to the one that opens the album. So clearly they were able to pull it off. And like I said, this is kind of a lesson for anybody who's working with other people. I think open, honest, and maybe empathetic, or I don't want to say kind, but empathetic communication is like key. It sometimes is super hard to have that conversation with people, but you're better off just being upfront, rather than kind of like beating around the bush or waiting until it's too late, But Lucas, great job.
The actual story from my end is a lot less sophisticated and a lot funnier than that.
Okay.
Who in here, when starting out with anything, like let's say you're doing a new genre or something, has tried finding the laziest way possible to do something? like the easiest shortcut. Like, I don't know, make an entire song by downloading loops from Splice, or taking something from VG Music and slapping the MIDI onto, like, slapping some VSTs onto the MIDI. And that's it. That's all you do. And you're like, it's a finished product. It's like, no, it's not. So the story is kind of like that for this arrangement. But Katie, why do you keep
Stay with us here, Lucas. Stay focused, man.
Okay.
We'll get over the summit together.
Okay. So what I did was I was getting the parts in and I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. But I have, I wasn't specific, like aside from the string section, I wasn't specific on whether people should double their takes or not, because the arrangement was, and it started out as chamber orchestral. And then I was like, what if I make it a full orchestra? And then it went back into chamber orchestra. But to get a full orchestra take, since there was no way I was going to ask the performers on it to be able to record more takes, I was like, I know the secret shortcut. I'm going to like take these takes, duplicate the take, and melodyne it slightly. And I was having problems with the track as I was listening to it, putting all these extra work, making like all these fake. I was giving myself more work by doing that, putting in all these like fake double tracks that were just not working. And I think like everyone was listening to it and everyone's like, well, this is sounding great. And I'm like, I don't think it's sounding great at all. And then when Alan came and said that, I'm like, okay, finally, I have an excuse to try dropping these ideas. Like I tried explaining to him, I'm like, wait, Alan doesn't produce music. What's the best way I can explain it? And I'm like, let me try deleting some tracks. If this doesn't sound like significantly better, then I'll just drop it, or I'll just throw like a last minute cover out and finish this later on my own time. So lo and behold, I did that. And as soon as I did that and fixed like the final tunings here and there, it was like, yeah, it's sounding way better. So it's funny because the work I was putting in towards the end was mostly just taking stuff out.
Wow.
I told you, it's a lot funnier now that you know the story from my end. The story from my end's just
I feel
like
validated though.
No.
Because you had concerns
You
too,
and
and you're
me.
like, "Well, I need someone to be the bad guy." And just be like, I don't know. if it's really-
I need someone like I need someone to just be like, sure, this is good, and it's like, or like, sure, I'm like, what am I doing here? Yeah, yeah, and there was no way you would have like even I think like calculated ears. There's no way they would have known what's going on, because from a listener's perspective, it's just like, oh, it sounds like the oboes attitude, and it's like, no, actually there's 4 oboes and I like have them duplicated. And so tip to anyone doing double tracking, fucking double track your songs. Just double track it. You'll be happier that way. You can there's like Melodyne there's these days. There's like repitch or whatever, realign, voxalign. There's like voxalign. There are other tools. You can bug someone else to do it. Just record a second take, because you will be happier with that probably in like 9 out of 10 cases at least than trying to fake a double track arrangement. I learned that the hard way. I as long as no one else goes through it because of me. Anyways,
learn from Lucas's lessons.
Yeah.
please, that is one of my favorite horror stories, because at least that's a horror story where like things turned out at the end. Whereas there was there was another. There was another one for Alan. Am I okay with saying the album it was for? I'll just briefly. There was one for Blink. I was about to say Blink 182. Link 182. And that track was, on the other hand, a not fun horror story, because I had the arrangement finished so late, and then like the recordings were coming in and like everything was recorded wrong, and I'm like, shit, there's no way this is happening. But this was like an actually funny one, because it was like, oh, cool, I'm not having to put in a ton of like work to fix this. It's just removing my attempt at being lazy, and it turned out great. Before we move on to the next track, I'm not going to mention every person by name, though I do want to thank all 10 of the people, but I do want to mention one person specifically by name who really deserves it. Viron Media, oh my God, she really helped sell this arrangement, because initially I was just there wasn't even gonna be a percussion section. Like there was most of that percussion, like I think most, if not all of that percussion you hear was not written into the arrangement. But at some point, she was like, I want to do stuff on one of these tracks. And I'm like, okay, I barely have time because we have less than a month, but here's some vague orchestral discussion stuff for percussion. Run with it. Like, here's some vague guidelines, here's some vague stuff. And she ran with it, and she sends me like here's like 20 tracks of like all sorts of different percussion, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wow.
Shout out to
There was
Veronica.
barely any editing. Just absolute shout outs. Shout outs to literally everyone else who performed on it too, especially with like such late notice and us like trying to cram it in. This was definitely a time. I've become a pro Melodyne user after this, and I've become really good at using Vox line too.
Oh man! And true to the album description, you have relived the pain, sweat, and tears of scaling Celeste Mountain.
Yep.
Bravo.
I feel like I had a harder time with everything on that arrangement than I did actually playing through Celeste. I feel like, because there was one of my other favorite stories. There was a time, I won't say who it was, but we had a French horn that had a dropout, and I was like messaging them, and I'm like, are you gonna have this take? Are you gonna have this take? And it was like, sometimes just the prodding people alone and like making sure everything in place was like the Dark Souls of BGM. Speaking of Dark Souls, GameGrooves also has a Dark Souls metal album. Anyway.
Oh man! Oh, did we have that one on here? I don't
flag.
remember. Oh my god, we've done so many with GameGrooves. I super love it. Lucas,
All
thanks
right.
so much for coming on to talk about your track. We're gonna get ready to move on to the next one, but we'll see you before the end.
That's right.
Awesome. And yeah, well, coming up, we have a song from one of my favorite areas in Celeste, and that is the super spooky hotel run by the perhaps overly cautious guest, or the host there, the spirit host. Oh my god! And of course, we are speaking of Spirit of Hospitality, as arranged by one Ian Martin. Yeah, Alan, what can you tell us about this track before we get into it?
It has theremin.
It has theremin. Awesome. Well, you are all going to discover the theremin for yourself. Let's listen. Well, there certainly was some theremin in that. Hello, Ian, arranger of that track. How you doing, man? It's been a while.
Good. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing good. Oh man, I don't think that I knew that you played or had a theremin, but it doesn't surprise me because you have just got like some serious tickle trunk energy with your musical collection there. Yeah, have you been playing theremin for a while, or?
So, funny story, I do own a theremin, and that is not my theremin. That's the incredible Danny Romberger of the game Brass, more often known for trombone, but
It's another
also an
slidey instrument. Yeah, yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, like it's another slidey instrument. We're all good, right? I mean, he's an incredible theremin player. I don't know if he's played on bonus stage before,
Haven't
but
had him yet. I
I
think you
think
referred him. Yeah.
yeah, he's played live, like a theremin set live on Lauren the Flute's channel.
Hmm.
Excellent set. But just like beyond just being a great musician, just a really cool guy. We've collaborated before on things. And so yeah, I believe it was his arrangement that I got to play on for the latest Game Brass album, the Outer Wilds track. So of course, I want to return the favor and stuff. So that was it was really cool to have them on here, as well as Carrie and Karina as too. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's always good to have collaborators.
Yeah. And what did? Sorry, what was the other instruments on that song as well?
Okay, so yeah, the other people I had, so Karina Pardis sang on it, and then Carrie Wood, who's kind of like a frequent collaborator of mine, played bass, and absolutely was amazing. She actually gave me two tracks, so I was able to kind of phase them in and out with each other. One's like sort of just what I wrote on the sheet music, and then the other is Carrie kind of doing what she does best and really, throwing in some ornamentation and slides and stuff. So it's really cool. It was really cool to get both of them and just kind of like mix them together, right? And then I played Esse Harpa, so this is my Esse Harpa debut. And what else did I Irish Bouzouki, which I've been kind of putting on everything these days, and Low Whistle, which yeah, so kind of an eclectic collection of instruments, but that was kind of what I was trying to showcase here. I know you
Mhm.
mentioned that it was like kind of a creepy track,
Yeah.
right? So that's very much what I was going for, and that's why I was really excited to get the theremin on there, because I was like, okay, that's kind of the epitome um of I don't know,
That
like
spooky,
Moody
ghostly vibe.
ambient.
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
is there a more ethereal instrument than one that you play by not touching it? Like, that's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And can I ask, have you played Celeste? And did you enjoy the level where this music is featured?
So I'm one of those horrible people. Like
Okay, not
Celeste,
horrible people, just less
yeah, just
favorable. Yeah.
right, less favorable. But Celeste is one of those games. I bought the soundtrack when it came out. I listened to it
Mm.
all the time. But it only exists to me as a soundtrack. And so that's it's one of those things where I'm like, as soon as Alan announced this project, I was like, I know exactly what I want to do, and how I want to do it, but I actually don't know anything about the context in which that
Oh.
track plays. So, but if you would like to explain it, I'd love to find out, because I feel like there's a story there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, and I did a playthrough. I think it started in like early 2021. Actually, I was playing through Celeste,
Mhm.
and this part of the game, I mean, you're on your ascent up the mountain, and you come upon this like abandoned hotel, but there's like one, excuse me, one like groundskeeper who's like trying to like be hospitable and befriend you a little bit, and you're kind of like following him all around the level. It's like, yeah, it's like you go around to like the back like of the laundry rooms, and like there's lots of like books and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just like a very kind of cozy indoor hotel platforming section that's yeah, it's a little unsettling because you're never fully sure whether like this guy who's showing you around is gonna fuck with you or not. But yeah, it's just like beautiful, and in the end, he just turns out to be like an earnest spirit who wants to befriend you, and it's very sweet.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
There you go. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ian, and thank you for putting this together for GameGrooves. Alan, do you have any comments that you want to make on this track or working with Ian before we move along?
I would say this theremin is the spookiest instrument for sure. No, just from a album arrangement or track order perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I really like this album as a whole because I feel like the beginning and end tracks are kind of different tonally from the rest. This track is like the first one is like, okay, we're getting started. Here's our adventure. You're thinking it might be kind of bright and optimistic. And then this one's like, wait a second. I don't like it's like the moment where things start going awry. And you're like, I'm not sure where we're going. And then you really get into the meat of the album with the next track and the next couple of tracks. So this is a great transition track. And obviously, with only 6 tracks, every track is super important for the overall flow. So thank you, Ian, for giving me a short but spooky track.
Oh, man. Leaves us wanting more. Thank you so much, Ian. We'll see you at the end here, bud.
Well, thank you.
Right on. Yes. Speaking of which, speaking of things that are spooky and unsettling, we have a track from The Noble Demon. And this is a song called Resurrections. Alan, what do you want to say about this one?
It's my favorite track on the album. Well, favorite track from the album, original album. Favorite Celeste track. I don't want to say favorite for this album because I don't play favorites, but
just put everybody, all our guests on the spot and be like,
all the other tracks suck. No, favorite Celeste track.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's one of my favorites too. This is Resurrections as arranged by The Noble Demon. Let's listen. Yeah, I think I'm with you there, Alan. Definitely one of the best tracks on that soundtrack, and we've got Evelyn here to talk about that arrangement as well. How you doing?
I am doing a-okay.
I'm doing really good. I'm reliving. Oh, what? Sorry, you've written this out so clearly, Alan. I should read. I should just read it. It says, "I'm reliving the pain, sweat, and tears of scaling Celeste Mountain." Listening to that track because that is a very pivotal moment in the game.
Oh yeah, that's part of kind of what drew me to covering it in the first place. Just the memory of playing through the level combined with the different sort of dynamic music changes. It really stuck with me. So as soon as Alida sent out the email for the potential for the Celeste EP, I immediately jumped on that one because I knew someday I was going to cover it, but I was honestly too kind of frightened to because of the significance of the track in the album and so on. But I felt that this was the time to just kind of go for it and see what happens.
Oh man, yeah. Well, we all heard what happened. I think it was amazing. You did a really good job, and you were saying backstage that you also meticulously entered all of that MIDI information.
Yeah. Oh, all the time. I really bad at keyboard, so all the time I'm just with my mouse clicking and everything. It takes forever, but
Hey, if it works, it works.
oh yeah, I have a system. It's totally fine.
Oh man, yeah. Well, then I guess I got to ask, like, how long did it take you to put this one together? Because it's not only an intimidating song and arrangement, but like a lot of it was a long track as well.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, yeah. Something like this. Usually when I do something this involved, I kind of sit down and just try to get it done in one sitting, which is debatably good. But this one probably took me like 1 day to transcribe it, 1 day to do the first half, and 1 day to do the second half.
Oh my God, that is like on the other end of what I thought your answer was gonna be.
Coffee.
Coffee, yes. Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. We just got an espresso machine. I know the wonders of caffeine for productivity. My goodness. Yeah, that was gorgeous, and yeah, like one of the things that I really love about video game soundtracks is having those dynamic soundtracks where the music is reacting to what's going on, and for anybody who is uninitiated, Ian Martin,
specifically,
this part of the game is where you're meeting a dark reflection of yourself, and there's a lot of mystery at the start, and then by the end of the segment, you're pretty much running from it, and it's really intense. Yeah, and I think you captured that really beautifully as well, Evelyn.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know how the decision to do it sort of a double time came up, but I was just kind of messing around, and I don't know, just one of those things that happened out of nowhere. But that's probably my favorite part of the song, the kind of chase sequence.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. No, I relived the pain, sweat, and tears of scaling Celeste Mountain in a single moment.
All of those.
I'm not gonna let that die, Alan. I hope you're ready for more of that.
It's helping. It's branding, man.
Yeah.
Gotta trademark that.
Oh my gosh. Evelyn, is there anything else that you want to tell us about this track before we move along?
It's long. It's a long track.
Right on, that it is. Alan, anything to add to that?
It's a great track. No, it is a long but great track, and I love the way it evolves. I mean, as I was trying to stumble up before, Resurrections is my favorite track from the original soundtrack for many reasons. And as we talked about, it's a pivotal moment for the game. And then you have that switch where the drums come in. It's just overall just definitely one of my favorite tracks from gaming. So when Evelyn reached out to me, I was very confident that they would be able to tackle this track. So great job.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us on the show. Happy to have you, Evelyn.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you back here in a little while. Right on. All right, we are gonna get going on to probably one of the heaviest tracks on this album. Yeah, we go from resurrections to in the mirror. Oh my god. Yeah, and this one is performed by the Plasmas. Alan, anything to set us off on the right foot here?
It's good.
Alan's feeling especially eloquent tonight, folks. That's all good, man. Yeah, this is the Plasmas. Here is in the mirror. Let's listen. Oh dang, that is some really heavy stuff, and welcome all of our wonderful raiders. Nice to have you all here over from Drum Ultima's. I almost said Drug Ultima's channel.
Drug Ultima.
Oh my God, that's a different channel, but hi, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Would love to hear what you guys were doing. I'm sure it was music related.
Thanks
Don't
for
mod
joining.
that one. Thanks, Nudge. Thanks for letting that slip. Yeah, and we're joined by Mauricio of the Plasmas. How you doing, man?
Hello, everyone. Here I am. It's too hot here. We're at summer, and oh, the sun is like the Super Mario Bros. 3 one. It's chasing me. The sun.
The sun, just like Mario 3. Yeah, he's coming after you, and you got to like jump over him and like just wait until you get that Koopa shell so you can knock him out, right? Yeah, and then it's winter for you guys, pretty much once that happens, isn't it?
So every time I see or I saw your post about Christmas and snow and stuff, for me it's why snow?
Oh man,
we are
Southern
dealing
Hemisphere problems.
with a really hot summer here. So
oh man. Well, and to think that you were arranging a track from a very snowy game while in that summer heat down there. Yeah, you guys really brought the heat all the same. Yeah, that was a really awesome track, and we were discussing backstage how you wouldn't take that track and naturally think, oh, this would be a really good metal cover, wouldn't it? So Mauricio, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you were inspired to put that track together?
yeah, some years ago, the Plasmas participated in an album about Echo Dolphin. It, 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 the OST is pretty similar to some songs of Celeste. They are very slow, calm, relaxed. And what I want to do when I did, I took this song and I thought how I can make a metal song with this. There are no guitars on in the mirror in the original.
Right.
So I was, well, what can I do? So I start with a riff and then the melody. It flew very well. So I am very happy with the result.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna make a really clever comment on that, and it just completely slipped my mind. How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing great. No, as you had mentioned, my Mauricio reached out to me when I first put out the email about the Celeste album, and they said I want to do a metal cover of this track, and I just said how. My first thought was how, and I think I did say like I don't see that, but I trust you because I knew Mauricio could arrange and write and perform because obviously if you've listened to the Castlevania album, then you know that. So I just said, okay, sure, why not? And what we got was this, where it's. I mean, it is. I applaud you for transforming this original into something like this and adding like the, it works as a metal song when I couldn't see it at all. So having those riffs and it kind of builds nicely and definitely sets the stage for Katie's track, which is insane. Mm-hmm. Again, I really feel like when you have an album this length, every track is really important for the journey. And I love that every track is pretty different. There's 2 tracks that are kind of metal, but when you compare, Katie's track with this track, there's clearly a huge difference in terms of sound and emotion and all that stuff. So well done, Mauricio. Well done. You proved how.
I remembered my clever comment, and no, I was just it's purely about your cleverness, Mauricio, and in the fact that like there are still those spaces in metal that have more drawn out stuff and I think you tapped into that. This track sounded very doomy, a little bit like black as well. Just like stuff where like you might do something that's a little bit simpler for a little bit longer and just like focus on the journey instead of the destination. I think it was really well done. Oh, and my dog is going nuts, so apologies for that. Mauricio, excellent job, and
Thank
happy
you.
to have you back here on the show. We'll see you back here in a little while.
Thank you so much for having me, for the chance. Thank you.
All right.
I love this EP. I really love this EP. All of you did an awesome work. All the songs are my favorite ones. I really listen the full EP day after day, and I'm really honored to be here with you, with all of you.
Aw.
Really awesome artists, musicians.
Yeah.
Wow.
Lots of hearts being shared backstage. It's wonderful. Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Mauricio. We'll see you in a little bit. Oh, right on. Yeah. Well, we've got 2 more tracks on this epic album. And like you were saying, Alan, we've got some Katie Scary coming up next. How do you want to open this track for us?
It's scary.
It's scary. It's scary. It's pretty epic. The metal in it. I'll speak more to the genre of that as well because I'm a huge metalhead and I just love picking that stuff apart. But yeah, we're gonna get into some Katie Scary with Scattered and Lost. Let's listen. Whoops. Oh, hold on. Why are you twice the size of us? Oh, wow. Okay, that's just that. No, here we are beside a giant picture of Katie Scary giving a 2 thumbs up endorsement. All
I'm
right,
okay with it.
I'm okay with it. Yeah, everybody's fine here. Yo, Katie, what's going on?
Hello.
That is an epic arrangement there, and I wanna say Rhapsody. I want to say Luca Turilli. Are you familiar with those terms?
Yeah, I was listening to a bunch of Stradivarius
Okay,
beforehand, and
nice.
Children of Bodom.
Okay, right on. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh my God, yeah, some really intense shredding going on there. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, what made you want to, I mean, it could just be right in front of my face. The epicness of the arrangement or the composition, I should say, might have drawn you. But what specifically made you want to cover Scattered and Lost?
I don't know. It was just one of the first ones that jumped out at me. Like I just brought up the OST onto like a YouTube playlist and just let it run and was just like waiting for something to pop out. And that was one of the first ones that like pretty immediately, I don't know, that main melody. Uh I was like, that sounds pretty like neoclassical, kind of like if I were to play it on guitar, I feel like that would fit the vibe of like what I would want to do with it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. After the first listen, that one just seemed like it would translate the best for me. So that was what I went with.
Right on. Have you played the game before?
Yes. And I
Awesome.
just played through it again like last month. I think like right after I handed in this track. I was like, all right, let's go back to it.
Oh man, because like pushing out those sweeps and those riffs wasn't punishing enough. You had to go and
Right. Yeah.
relive the pain, sweat, and tears of scaling Celeste Mountain.
Celeste Mountain. Yeah. Like if you
Oh,
had to describe it.
if I had to describe it, I would use Alan's words. That's right.
Yeah.
3 words: pain, sweat, and tears. Yes.
Oh man, Alan, what can you tell us about this track and working with Katie?
Well, I heard this was another dramatic backstory.
Hmm.
The song itself is great, but when Katie sent, I think it was actually when she wanted to sign on, she called me Al, which led to her being kicked out of GameGrooves temporarily, and I publicly shamed her. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding. Shamed myself and let everyone know I hate that nickname. But no, in all seriousness, this is a great track. Please don't call me Al, but I know if I say that, everyone's going to do that, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, again, another one of those tracks that I wouldn't necessarily hear metal at first, but I love the more creative arrangements for sure. And so this is one of those, and it's just a barn burner from start to finish. So it is what, if you go to my handy, I forget the title of the article, but I've written an article for the GameGrooves website where I talk about my philosophy on arranging albums. This is like the climax track where you have the most energy. And so this is like a great way to this is the final boss fight, so to speak, of the album. And so it's just, lots of intensity, lots of energy, lots of two thumbs up with a lot of fire. If you just see this profile picture, this is a pretty good representation of the song,
right on. We can just sit here in silence for
Yeah,
5 minutes and
we can
appreciate.
just say, look at this. This is yes.
There we go.
This is
The
yes.
picture is the 1,000 words.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's also in song form.
Also, don't call me Al, please.
My name is
Alan.
Katie Scary. I will call you whatever you want.
Yeah.
There we
Cat
go.
scary.
That's a fair barter if I ever heard one. Right on. Oh man, Katie, Epic, have you been on one of the GameGrooves albums before?
Yeah, I was on the Sonic Adventure one. I did Dry Lagoon.
Dry Lagoon.
Nice, nice. And still after this whole experience, still 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Please don't yell at me. It's okay. You can be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on I'm on one more, I think, still at least. It's in the pipe.
Nice.
It's in the pipeline. So
Okay.
and I was on the Earthbound one. I forgot about that one. So yeah, no, it's a good time. It always is.
Factory Floor.
Oh yeah, we had that one on here. Okay, cool. Well, we can't wait to hear from the next one, and yeah, thanks for joining us on the show to talk about your track tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you in a little while. All right, there we go. Alan and I of normal size. Moving right along. Wow, I mean, it feels like we just took our first steps on this journey. We experienced a spirit of hospitality and were resurrected, as it were, in the mirror. And then we just became scattered and lost for no apparent reason. In in relation to this short plot that I'm synopsing right now. And now we're about to depart and say goodbye to our dearest friends with a track called "My Dearest Friends" by Deontay, who is just giving me a standing ovation in the background. I can't wait to talk to you, bud. Alan, yeah, is there anything you want to say before we get into this last track here?
That was impressive.
Oh. Okay, cool. Yeah, then in that case, Deontay George, my dearest friends, let's Alan.
Listen.
I just love smooth saxophone, closing out an album, just all the warm feels and the warm instrumentation. Excellent job, Deontay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure. Yeah, my dearest friends, is this the last? I need a refresher. Is this the last track on the album, or on the soundtrack, so to speak? Sorry. Oh my god.
Yes, it is. This one is not at the end of the game. At the end of the game, this is when you go to the credit, when you access the credits from the menu. From what I did research from it, like it was originally supposed to, but it didn't necessarily fit like the tone. But they loved it so much that they kind of wanted to keep it in there as the credit music anyway. So, and honestly, I really loved it to the point that I wanted to cover it.
No, you did a really beautiful job. Yeah, can I ask, did you do all of that? Or no, you've got credits here actually. Yeah, why don't you break down your collaborators on this arrangement?
So this was, speaking of collaborators, this is actually the first time I usually ask for collaboration. Usually I like to do stuff for myself because I'm very nervous to ask for help from other people. But I ended up like reaching out to Nico Mendez and
Felix.
I think yeah, Felix Mendez and Nico for like for instrumental help. I reached out to Felix first, and then like Nico ended up like sending bass parts like super fast, and it all just kind of just came together really quickly. Then as for drums, I ended up asking an old college friend, Bryce Schlatner, who we ended up like playing on each other's like stuff every now and then. So it's like I just asked, hey, can you like do some jazz brush drums work on it? And he was like, sure. And it all just kind of came together really well.
Yeah, that's oh my god. Just like a smooth jazz closer. Everybody's bringing their A game. It's beautiful. Did you specifically, like when you heard that Alan was reaching out for submissions for this, were you immediately like drawn to this song for your choice, or did you do a little research beforehand? What was that song selection like?
As soon as I saw the email, pretty much I already knew which one I was gonna do. Like I immediately sent like an email saying, is this open? Got the confirmation. I was like, okay, and I immediately started like transcribing it like in an hour, and kind of just like slowly kind of just arranged it like over the course of like 3 days, and kind of just sent out the parts after that.
Oh wow, I'm super jealous of everybody's turnaround time here. Alan, you've whipped everybody into good shape with these community albums. Do you want to speak to working with Deontay and this track specifically?
It was a pleasure. No, this track was, no, Deontay is a great musician. I can't remember if I heard this track or not from the game, but when they reached out about the arrangement, I listened to it and I was like, okay, this would be kind of fun. And obviously I was super happy with the final product, and you know, it is a bit of a switch to go from Katie's track to this one, but at the same time, you know, I think the benefit of having a shorter album is that you don't exhaust the listener. So it's like every track can be a little different. Whereas if this was like a 20-track album or something, and every track is different like after a certain point, it's just going to be a little bit too much. Whereas with this, it's like everyone is like fresh and new. So when this jazz comes in, you're like, okay, this is the end. We're easing out. As I said before, you know, when you take like Lucas's first track and Deontay's track, they're pretty different from the rest of the other ones. The 2 through 4 or 2 through 5 kind of fit more, maybe not in terms of styles, but just overall mood. But like you said, this is a nice, like, you know, it's the end. Take a deep breath. We've gone on this great journey. You know, we're back home or whatever. We're ready to play. You know, Demon Souls after this game, something a little bit easier than Celeste. But no, in all seriousness, I'm happy to hear that this encouraged Deontay to collaborate, because that really is, you know, one of the core philosophies of GameGrooves. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but there is a point to it, and the point is just, you know, I put out this whole long video, which I won't repeat, but I put out a long video essentially talking about some of my concerns with having GameGrooves be such a broad label where we have all these different genres. And there are definitely times where it's hard, because it's like, would it be, you know, I wonder, would it be easier to market or to build an audience if we had a more defined sound? But then when we have projects like this, where we have all these different artists that are coming together for an album that might not normally, you know, exist in the same album or collaborate with each other or be aware of each other, that's when it's like, okay, this is why we're doing it. Because when you bring together people from different musical backgrounds that wouldn't necessarily otherwise collaborate, you get some really cool stuff. And so, like I said, it's fun to do the genre specific albums, and we'll keep doing that, but it's also fun to do these kinds of albums. You know, I have now defined GameGrooves as like a house party where you have all these different, like, think of like early 2000s like crappy teen rom-com or teen comedies where it's like you have your different groups and they're all hanging out and everybody's having a good time, and everybody's just vibing. You know, I won't say necessarily what's at the party, but you can make it up as you want. And
Drug Ultima.
video game music, Drug Ultima. Drug Ultima's there, definitely. No, but in all seriousness, that's kind of the vibe I want for GameGrooves, is that it's a house party and everybody's welcome. And, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of music you like, you're going to find something to like here. And so I think that definitely is true with this album. You know, with 6 tracks, I think we cover a lot of ground in terms of both arrangements and styles. So well done to everybody. You know, I don't know how people keep signing up for these albums. I guess they trust me. I don't know, or they just love video game music.
It must be enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I try to make
Alan.
it as I'll be honest. I try to make it as easy as possible for people to perform on these albums if they want to. I try not to have too many like that, you know, check-ins or anything like that, because ultimately, like I said, I trust the artists. I'm inspired by them continuously. So again, you know, just like the game, you know, you've got to push yourself. And it seems like from what everyone is saying, everybody did take some, you know, first step to steal your phrasing. Yeah, first step and do something a little different. So I want to say thank you to all the artists for making this amazing album and, you know, making GameGrooves great.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you, Deontay. And I think we're going to get everybody in here at the moment just for a little big Brady Bunch. We'll see if bringing in Katie last has any bearing on.
It won't.
Oh, no. Katie's still huge. All right.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Katie is the star of this album.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun to have you all on the show here tonight. A wonderful way to start the year here on Bonus Stage with you all. Thank you so much for your hard work on this album. There's the link over in chat. Alan, you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that that GameGrooves has coming up next?
Sure, but first I want to make sure, does anybody else have any experiences they want to share real quick about the album, or anything they learned about going over the song?
Too much.
On the other
side. I am now a pro expert user in Melodyne, and I can now use a Voxeline.
Nice. Oh, right on. Yeah. Well, Alan. Yeah. I know you dropped the Shovel Knight album, which is coming up in February.
Correct.
Are you going to hit me up for a listening party when that's all finalized? Okay, good. Yeah.
We have an album and we have album art underway, and the masters are being worked on right now. Shout out to James Hoffman for doing those. Also, I need to remember to do a shout out to the cover artist for this album.
Oh yes, of course.
Phonics. I think I'm saying that right, but whatever. She does great artwork. She's done a couple GameGrooves albums, and we quickly discussed, you know, what we thought would be good. And I had seen a picture of like Madeline and Badeline kind of like in a position together, and they were kind of like, it almost looked like a yin yang thing. So I said, what if we took that and like made it a little bit more pronounced? And that's what we ended up with. So that was a very quick process. She's a great artist, and I really am happy with the album art, of course. But to go back to what you were saying, Shovel Knight, we have the title "Hail to the Night," a metalcore Shovel Knight, a metalcore tribute to Shovel Knight. We have 14, I think, tracks on that. We had a last minute edition by Thenikin, which was really cool. That that is going to be a good way to kick off the new year for sure. This is also a great way to kick off the new year because technically it released last year, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's going to be a shot of metalcore and, straight to the veins. And then in April, I've mentioned that we are doing a Final Fantasy VII ska album that will be called Scavalanche. Yeah, a ska tribute to
Wonderful.
7.
Yeah.
And then we've got a few more albums that are in the underway, but they're secret and we can't talk about it, or else we'd have to kill you. So I want you to live to do many more listening parties and streams. I won't tell you.
Awesome.
For your own safety.
Okay. That's
also
really
MagFest.
Yes,
MagFest
also
shout
MagFest.
outs.
Oh my god.
MagFest is quickly approaching, and I have not done all the things I need to, so I'm going to be in panic / procrastinate mode for these next couple of days. But I'll be sharing some information. We're doing a panel with, let me make sure I get everybody correctly. We're doing a panel on how to create a video game cover album and I'm hosting with Tara Catalo, aka TRC Music, Ro Panaganti, Lacey Johnson, Robbie Duguay from the Game Brass, and Mustin from the One Ups will be joining us.
Nice.
Since Hashel from Pixel Mixer is not able to come to MagFest, we got another person to come in. You might have heard of the One Ups. They're a little known band,
Yeah.
And that is actually Saturday at 9 p.m., which is not the best time, but I'm not going to complain. I know. If you can make it, great. If you can't, I completely understand. There's so much good stuff happening at Mag. But I'll be there. Just come say hi. I'm going to be wearing GameGrooves merch so people can recognize me with the mask on. And since I missed Mag last year, I'm super excited. It's just legitimately one of my favorite things all year. It's like right up there with the Renaissance Festival. MagFest and Renaissance Festival are like my yearly traditions. And I just get so invigorated, to use a big word, invigorated when I go to keep doing this thing, even though I constantly ask myself, like, why am I spending all this time? And then it's like, oh yeah, when I put out albums and when I get to talk to cool people and then when I get to tell people who look very confused what I do, like, what do you mean you do this? It's like, it's a thing, people do it, people listen to it.
Yeah. Don't get sheepish about it, Alan. You're doing good work, man. Absolutely.
Trying to make the world a groovier place.
A game groovier place.
A game groovier place. With the pain, sweat, and tears.
Well, we've got a little bit more BS coming up on this channel. We are. Well, I'm currently just trying to finalize the lineup for our first Music Online of the year. That's going to be on January 14th.
Awesome.
And we are going to be, we're planning to have a listening party for Polystation. I saw you in chat, but their album that they actually released last year, we want to get them on here for a Let's Listen. And then we're going to have Rob Kovacs he's been talking about it for a while, but he's been working on the soundtrack for a VR game called Straylight. And he's going to come on the show and it's going to be the first time that we've had a Let's Listen for an album where it was all like composed by somebody in the VGM community for an actual video game. So we're really excited about that. And we'll definitely just keep you posted on social media for all of those announcements as they develop. Thank you everybody for being here on Let's Listen. Thank you, Deontay, Lucas, Evelyn, Katie, Ian, Mauricio, Alan. Huge pleasure having you all on here to break down your tracks with us. Thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to get this after our postponement last week. And folks, thank you so much for being here in chat. We'll catch you around. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
See y'all next time.
See you next year. Oh wait, no, it is 2023.
It is already.
Well, I haven't talked to you guys since 2020 too.
Oh God. Okay. Goodbye.